Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into this is an EDC comparison of multi-tools. Now, haven't done one of these in a little bit of time, but I was recently looking at some videos that I came across where it seems like Rocktol, and this is the Rocktol Gen R, which I reviewed on the channel before, and this is your Leatherman Wave Plus, which I also reviewed on the channel before. Now, I've been seeing a lot of videos recently where the Rocktol, the Gen R, seems to be like almost like the new standard. It becomes almost like the new standard. And I say that because I've seen that they have made a knife version, if you will call it that, like a one-sided plier version, where you have just like, say, just the one side like this, one of these sides, and it'll have the knife in it and a few other things. And they also recently released, I've seen some people showing off a almost like a surge clone type or a bigger, beefier Gen R, so the knife version is actually called the Gen R Lite, and then they had a beefier version, which I don't think, it didn't have a specific name like the Gen R Lite or anything like that, but it has looks almost like a stone wash finish on the whole knife, on the whole tool, including the blades. And it seems to be more beefier, more akin to a surge. So as I was seeing a lot of these kind of different videos and people talking on this on a lot of different channels, even though this one's been out for a little while now, it feels like once Rocktol started putting in that better quality into their tools, that it almost became the new standard, where like I see a lot of people kind of making that like, if you want a budget tool, there's the one to get, and it has all these extra features. It's got a better blade because the blade on it comes standard with VG10, which is a better quality blade than what normally comes with a lot of these Chinese made tools or whatnot. And so it made me get to the thinking of that this is becoming the new standard, but then this was always the gold standard. And what's interesting is while this is starting to rise in its popularity, this was the first one. This is like the backbone of it. Rocktol's made other tools, but it was almost like they increased the quality when they started with the Gen R, followed by the Gen R Lite, and then followed by the newer one that doesn't have a specific name, but it is within this same kind of formula where it's got the G10 blade and whatnot. And they even have replacement blades. So once you got to the point of the Gen R and on, everything increased for them. And it felt like they were kind of taking over the alternative. We'll call them, for a nicer word now, they used to always call them wave clones. But at this point now, they're not just a shadow of the wave. And that's the very point of this video right here in this comparison. They've almost become a life of their own now, where all these quote unquote clones are now almost, you would just say, alternative, multi-tools, like alternative brand multi-tools, because they're really holding their own. They're not just in the shadow anymore of Leatherman or Leatherman's Wave. And so with that being said, this, I would say, set the bar for a higher level of quality at a pretty affordable price. This normally goes, I'm gonna have to link a description of both of these. This normally goes for about low 40s, maybe like $42. And the Wave Plus has always gone for about $120 in the last several years. So that's kind of been its staple price. Now, from my understanding, it's no longer gonna be coming with a sheath. The Rocktol obviously comes with a sheath, and it also comes with an additional bit kit. Small bit kit, but additional bit kit along with it. So with that being said, we're just gonna do this pretty quick rundown, a comparison to say the gold standard versus the new standard. What's interesting too is that the gold standard has now been dropping in terms of it being this gold standard. What do I mean by that? Well, everyone used to always swear by the Wave, and it was the one that you go to, especially when all the patents existed for Leatherman and the Wave Plus, when other companies didn't have that. Once the patents were gone, you had a lot more alternative multi-tools dropping out that were very similar in design, but they put their own different spin on things. And as they got better and better, the Wave, it's not that it got worse, but even in Leatherman's own lineup, it no longer was the top dog anymore. Not to say it was the most expensive, but it usually was always the best well-rounded, I guess. And now you have other things like obviously you had the P series, the free P series, the P2 and the P4. Then you had the Arc, which came out afterwards, and now you have the Wave Alpha. So it's almost like the general Wave, the basic Wave, Wave Plus which was always the gold standard, has now kind of dipped in terms of it being like the king of even its own domain. So I think that's what makes this concept very interesting, because of the fact that this has dropped in its status even within its own company, and you have this, which is like the peak of the alternatives. So let's just pretty much jump into it. We're gonna go by, just throw out a couple of different factors. First thing I wanna do is just have something to lay these down on so they aren't scratching, because the surface of this table is very hard. So one thing that I do notice in hand, if someone was considering, say, one or the other, and I know they're not in the same price bracket, but you know, when it comes to the question of is the Leatherman worth it, that's something that has been debated for a long time. I think it's becoming less and less of a thing where it's worth it than it may have been before. People would say quality control, you know, you get the warranty and all that stuff played a big role, but as these other companies are getting better and better at what they're doing, that gap becomes a lot smaller. Now, one thing I will say is that the feel and the quality of the Leatherman feels better. I'll give it that. Is it 3 times better? I don't think so, but at the same time too, that's up to everyone's opinion, but it is better. It's more sturdily built, if that's a word. This, you can see there's some wobble, so a little bit of play, not a lot, but a little bit, where the Leatherman, you really don't have that. And you could tell that the craftsmanship on this, everything feels just done in a way where it's almost like a work of art. To the point where you almost don't even want to like dirty it up and get it kind of messed up to a degree. Now, those who buy it to work with it are going to push it to its limits, but I definitely feel that the quality of the visual goes hand in hand with the price, making it become something kind of akin to where, for those who are familiar with the watch world, back in the days, Rolex used to be that same way. There used to be a tool type of watch, not a tool watch, but almost in a sense like a rugged, more affordable watch many years back. I'm talking about many moons back. But once it got so popular, the prices went up on it. It became such a luxury item that it no longer was affordable anymore. And I feel like that's almost like what Leatherman has kind of become, where the craftsmanship is nice, but it's almost gets to a point where you almost don't even want to bang it up, because at that price, it becomes more of like almost like an ornament than it is a tool. Now, that's just going over the quality up front, where this is not that bad though. It has a little bit of the wobble, like I said, but it still looks nice. It definitely has a nice look to it. It may not be machine finished to the same quality level, and the craftsmanship may not give that same visual appeal, but it's still probably the highest of the alternatives. And so I definitely give it credit for that, but especially the fact that it's 40, low 40 in terms of the dollars. Now, the knife that it comes with, VG10. Now, I don't know too much about blade steels, but I've heard people say that this blade is considered a better blade than the Leatherman's blade in terms of quality. Now, this is not to go off of, you know, how sharp they come out the box, all this other type of stuff, the type of cuts, all that kind of stuff, just going off the basis of the actual blade material. And they're roughly about the same length. And I'm told, like I said, VG10 is a better blade material. And then, so coming on this side, and I always have a little bit of trouble with this here because I don't have nails. So getting inside this spot here is very hard. I got to use something to get it out. That is always something that I've had an issue with some of these alternative multi-tools, where the Wave, even though I don't have nails, it's not a problem. They make sure that the placement of the groove here is still, you can access it even if you don't have nails. Now, they definitely have a different type of bite on their saws. The Rocktol is a lot more like toothy, and this one's a lot more like, you know, smaller teeth, less aggressive. But if they both get the same job done, then they get the same job done. So that's all that matters. The retraction of both tools is a lot smoother on the Leatherman. But like I said, these are things that if you didn't have the Leatherman in hand, I don't think it would make a difference or bother you in any kind of way. Here goes the serrated blade. Now the Rocktol has they kind of hook, the reverse hook, which is great for if you want to cut certain types of rope or things of that sort. That's actually pretty nice and handy. Other than that, the rest of the blades pretty much look roughly about the same. This side is the side that has more, I don't know what you would call it. I'm going to use a word and call it more dimensional. And this side is more flat. You can tell by where the teeth meet at the edge. There's no dimension there, and this side does. So other than that, this one has that additional hook, which is just a bonus. Now this is one area where these two separate in terms of their design, and that is this one has a file if you need that. And this one has scissors, which me personally, I love a big pair of scissors. And it's not so much about, some people will put it to the test between going through things like, you know, paracord and all these other kind of things for survival purposes, maybe, whatever the case is. The truth is, when I have a multi-tool, what I love bigger scissors for is not even those kind of things. It's really just for paper. I know it might seem kind of basic, but if you're dealing with, you know, kids and you have a tool in the house like this, it's great when you have your kids' toys might need to unscrew to get to the battery compartment. They're doing some kind of arts and crafts. You need a pair of scissors. You get a new box comes in, something you ordered that, you know, maybe something you just got to open. You reach for this. So it's like, to me, I use it more in a domestic level, a domestic basis. So for me, it's going to be different for the people who are, you know, really out there doing hardcore stuff. Obviously, a file is probably more important to a person who's out there, you know, working on a construction site than a pair of scissors. Now, the Leatherman Wave Plus has scissors, but the Gen R, the scissors are a lot more better for you actually comfortably cutting paper. And that's not to say that they can't, because many people have demonstrated that it can, these scissors can cut other things. But I'm just letting you know, size-wise, is definitely more convenient for things like casually cutting paper, where the scissors on this are actually pretty good for cutting things. They're just very small and they're not as enjoyable to use. But those are the set of tools on the outside. Then we're going to go to the pliers. Now the Leatherman is a lot more slimmer profile in general, so it's easier to fit in the pocket. And what's interesting enough is I can actually fit it in my, I believe this is the Viper A VE21, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I think it's 21. And I can't fit the Rocktol in here very easy with all the rest of the things I have in here because this is slimmer. So that difference in slimness is actually noticeable depending on where you're trying to hold it. But with that being said, also too, this doesn't come with a pocket clip. This one does. For the remainder of the video, I'm just gonna throw this pocket clip on it, which is the one that I bought for it. But this costs like about $10. So let's make sure that that's locked in correctly. Yeah. So just know that it doesn't come with it. Obviously, for anyone who's kind of familiar with this, they would know that already. So you have the pliers there, and for the most part, this has the plier design that's supposed to be considered stronger, because this is the same design, if I'm not mistaken, that is on the Free series, and I think even on the Arc. And I'm not speaking towards the quality, but I just mean in terms of the shape. And people say that means it's a stronger shape. If you're doing basic stuff, that's probably not going to make a difference. I can't attest to which one's stronger or not because I don't use them to that level. I do basic stuff into the house with them, so nothing that, you know, gets to that point where you're really pulling on things and doing something really hardcore. Like I'll do it to reach in tight spots or hold one end of a device that I'm trying to screw the other side in, things of that sort. So not very pressing situations, but for the purposes of this video, there is little difference in that department. Now we're gonna go over to, let's go to this side first. This is the bit driver for this. Obviously they have their proprietary bits for Leatherman, and I think this is just, it's not good. But then again, it does allow this to probably be a slimmer profile, which adds to the fact of making this a slimmer device. And in that case, this for a pinch is not a problem when it comes to just, like I said, basic stuff that you're doing. But the problem with it more so is that you got to hope that you always have this. Getting different ones or newer ones are not that easy. It probably would almost cost you nearly the same price to replace this by getting a bit kit that it is for you to buy this entire tool, or at least another tool like it, and get another bit like this. But finding extra bits like this, I'm sure are a lot more cheaper because it's not a proprietary system, it's more of a universal system. So that's definitely a plus there, but because it's thicker, it makes the whole tool thicker. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Now this puts all the other tools on this side. This one has one other tool on this same side, and that is the can opener, bottle opener. So your standard can opener, bottle opener, wire stripper. So you have that both on that same side, which once again gives you a little more space to make it thinner on both sides. Because now this one has 4 tools on this side rather than, no, I'm sorry. I think is it 4 or 3? Let's count them up. I'm sorry. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3 tools. So 3 tools on this side. And then you've got your scissors. Micro driver, which is actually a lot more defined than most. That's one thing I will say. Now the Rocktol's one, the Gen R, has a decent quality in their micro driver, but not as good as the Leatherman's. Obviously you have the smaller scissors here, which are a good pair of scissors for cutting, but they're just small. And then I really do like the flathead screwdriver here, because even though you already have one from this side with the bit kit, I like it for the purpose of this. Works as a good pry tool in that regard, because it's pretty thick for that. Because there's sometimes you have certain ones that are at the end of like a file and they're very cheap. This is like all like just solid, so that's good for the purpose of prying. I actually like that for that purpose. Now getting into this side here, it gives you those same benefits. The bottle opener, can opener, the flat screw driver head, which is great for, like I said, using as a pry since you already have the other side here. You could see here that the tip of the driver is not nearly as defined. I know it's not easy to see, but it's definitely not as defined. It's not bad, it's just not nearly as good as the Leatherman, if that's what you want it for. But then again, I feel like most people are not going to be buying this for that particular tool. You have the awl here, so that's like an extra bonus too that you're not getting on the other one. So you got 4 tools on this side, that one has 3, but then when you include the one on this side, which is the can opener or bottle opener, you have the total amount of same tools. The difference is, no, I'm sorry, I'm missing 1 tool from this that I forgot to pull out. This one has 5 on this side, so that thickness comes into play. You've got the, I'm sorry about that, I knew something was missing. I felt like something was missing. You got the file here, which is pointless, and that kind of is what I was saying before too. That tip is a screwdriver tip, but you wouldn't use this as an alternative for prying. You could use that for that. just like you could use that for the Leatherman, but you've got these 5 tools. And I think that this one is a waste right here, but they just throw it in just to throw it. But to me, like a file of that size, I wouldn't use it. I don't want to say it's a waste. Some people might use it, but the point is like, obviously this one trades that in favor of the scissors. But you have the 5 tools over here because it's a thicker tool, so you have more tools in the handles. And I feel that 1, 2, 3 of these to me are definitely useful at, you know, at some point or another. 2 of them I don't find to be very useful. And here, these 2 are useful, the scissors and the flathead. And obviously the can opener, bottle opener is useful on this one. So a little bit different. They're a little bit different, but overall you're getting most of the same things, or you can execute most of the same things. So like I said, this is really kind of just breaking down the idea of the previous gold standard versus the new standard. And I really just want to kind of speak it in that way, because I really do feel that that's what's happening. If you are in that community or in that space, you're realizing that this is becoming that new standard. They're putting thought into their design. They're putting thought into their shaping, the case design, the materials, and, you know, not only just the blade, but even like the cover materials here. If I'm not mistaken, this is like titanium coated. And the newer ones that they have too, the one that's a little larger, has, like I said, stone wash. The light, the Gen R light, which is just one of these handles, considered a knife version, is also stone wash with the VG10 blade. So they're taking that little extra mile to go above, say, companies like Byberry and SQT and all those other companies that they were all at Felisa, all in the same range, but they're kind of just stepping up a little bit to say, okay, we're going to give you a little bit more better quality in the materials, a little bit more better finishing on the casing. You know, the tool sets, they're really coming out and kind of thinking of additional things. The other ones are too, in terms of tool set, but like additional things to step up the bar, where it's like, okay, like let's take this design, we're going to put the scissors on the outside, where before with Leatherman, that was always like, you had the, let's see, you had the wave, there's the Surge is the big one. Charge is what I was looking at. Charge would be the one that they might do that with, which was like also like almost like a premium wave. But now it's like, well, they're giving you those features and this at a fraction of the price. So it definitely is becoming the new standard. Let me know what you guys think in regards to that. Like, do you feel that like your interpretation on that, the new standard versus the old gold standard? It's not so much about saying, you know, which one's per se better. Yes, it's a comparative video, but it's also just kind of saying the trend that is changing now in terms of what people kind of go to, or their natural go-to now. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that the Wave Plus is falling from that space? Do you still kind of hold on to it as being like it is that's still that gold standard? Or do you feel that the new standard versus the old gold standard, do you feel the new standard is taking over to the point where it's like, okay, yes, like I said, this is still new, but I'm seeing a lot of people make this the bar to be measured against now, like no longer below this. Like, so even of the other ones that were alternatives, the Gen R is almost like the peak of that. So when people say like, well, if I could buy one of the alternatives and I can only have one, most people who you know, watch those type of EDC videos have multiple. But if you're gonna be like, I'm gonna have one, this becomes the new bar to have, because it's about $42. So the price is good for what you're getting. Comes with obviously the case, and the sheath is, for the most part, a very similar design as the Leatherman, in the sense that it has that stretchy material. Yes, this is like built up a little more with all these extra layers onto it, but nonetheless, it's still doing the same thing. It has that stretchy vibe to it. It has this type of, that type of button on it. And it very much feels like, you know, a similar type of quality to it and whatnot. So let me know what your thoughts are, you guys. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.